Good morning.
Good morning. Good
All right.
morning.
I have to explain a little bit what happened and how I got involved. I came to the United States over the Atlantic and then through all sorts of stuff. I went to Bermuda, Tortola, then I crossed the Pacific. And there was one little thing I didn't do, was actually Panama. For me, it was a symbol of doing half the world. I really wanted to do Panama. And in August last year, I meet another brother of the coast. The Brotherhood is actually a fraternity of seamen and people who love the sea. And it was founded in 1956 in Chile and Argentina, which is very funny because these two countries always fight for the islands in Patagonia. And we are basically based on one series of rules, but the most important thing is the love of the sea. And I met this family in Sag Harbor. They were not fully brother of the coast yet, but this family actually was going for a very long cruise. They got stuck in the Bahamas during COVID. They have 2 kids on board, and I had the wonderful opportunity to go down from Sag Harbor back to Port Washington in a multiple legs. We met every evening and we created a very strong bond. And I said, you know what, one day I'd like to go to Panama. Well, mid-February, Robert, we need a line handler. So I say, I'm coming. And now how does that work? I'm here. Good. So what is Panama? It's very, very interesting. First, the Panama is not going east to west or west to east. It's actually going more or less down. And it's one of the only places in the world where you can actually go on top of one of the volcanoes and you see 2 oceans.
Wow.
Okay, so it's kind of interesting. And as you see, Panama is very vertical. And it's very weird because you think that you're actually crossing 2 oceans from going east to west. And when you look at your GPS, it goes down, close towards 0. Now, there are some very interesting other passages like that in the world. There is, of course, the Corinthian Isthmus, which is, I don't know the history too much. There is the Canal of Suez, which is very important also for worldwide commerce. And it was built by the French. Right. Well, easy, right? It's sand. Well, we can do the same for Panama. It was a nightmare. There has been almost 40,000 deaths while digging the Canal of Panama. Most of these are unrecorded because they have a dark scale. Some people came from France, Germany, Belgium, and so on to actually help to dig because it was a complete Ponzi scheme organized by the French. Finally, one day, some people took over and did some very, very important things. A couple of American tourists came there. That's actually Ted Roosevelt. And the very funny thing, this guy actually is the first president who actually left the United States while in office. And he had an whole entourage and so on. In the morning, people were coming, President, coffee, sir. Where's the president? When he was actually visiting the work site, left and right. He was really instrumental in actually get this going. And when we look at the size of this construction, it's monstrous. So there has been all sorts of theories. We could go through Nicaragua, long trip, but flat. Or we can go through Panama. In fact, you will see actually in Panama, we need a lot of slots. And these slots are actually, that's not a good representation of the slots. The slot actually raise the ship until the middle of a big lake. I think it's called Gatun Lake. And then lower the ship again. Actually, one thing is very strange. The level of both oceans is almost identical. So we saw that actually because of the the tide current and so on, there would be at least a couple of feet difference. No, it's the same level. Now, there is something else that happened. It was built in 1800 something. It was started in 1853. It finally opened, if I recall, the 4th of July 1904 or 1914. And so it was actually for that commercial traffic. Well, wait a minute. When we see the difference now between what was built in the past and what we need to do today is enormous. This kind of ship was called the Panamax type of ship because they could actually go through the Panama Canal. These are the modern ships. Look at the size of the breadth, which is 49 meters now, and it was 32 meters. That was the maximum. Now suddenly the Americans said, well, wait a minute, we have a very large airplane carrier, and we have to go through Panama. It doesn't go anymore. Stop! And on the 1st of January 2000, the Americans said, see ya, we won't bank anything, we won't give you any money, we don't need the Panama Canal anymore. And that's when actually Panama came under the jurisdiction of.
Wow. You have a plug you in.
Thank you. We don't want that to happen again. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Is it on this?
Thank you. Is it on the other side?
Wow, what a team.
I can't.
Voila. Okay.
Okay.
Voila. So what happened actually the last 20, 25 years? We can see the old Panama Canal and the new Panama Canal with the old US base, the series of US base barracks, which are totally not used by the American anymore. And this is the old canal that we actually passed. It's very funny because sometimes we cross big ships, sometimes we are going alongside, going up, and sometimes we're going down. So it depends how much traffic and so on. The traffic around the Panama Canal is insane, absolutely insane. Sometimes people, smaller boats take 2 days to actually pass the canal. And they actually have to spend one night in the lake at anchor. We were forced to actually go in one day, and we regretted that. I really wanted to see some alligators and all sorts of fun things.
How big was your boat?
The boat, actually, good question. The boat is 42.5 feet catamaran, and basically it costed $3,000 all in all to pass because we have to actually hire an additional line handler. We have to have 4 line handlers older than 18 years old on the boat. Okay, they are the 2 kids, which are fantastic, but they were not 18. So we had to hire one. We had one friend from the Bahamas coming. I was there. Hey, that makes 5. But somebody has to be at the hand. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is suddenly we need a pilot. I don't know why. Okay, so this pilot came on board to tell us where to go. Well, sometimes it's interesting because we went both on the left and on the right, depending on whatever signal you actually received on the radio or whatever.
Is there an upper age limit?
That still took me.
Robert,
Yes.
is there an upper age limit?
I don't know. I might pass again. Panama, we think, okay, it's a jungle and so on. Wow, look at this kind of buildings. Panama actually experienced an unbelievable boom, real estate boom in the mid-90s. Actually, mid-90s, beginning of the year 2000, that's when Shana and EJ decided to stay there.
Yes.
After having done, they said, oh, this is booming, we will make money. Well, things have a little bit changed, but Panama is
Are they coming back?
so I was so this was my new brother, okay, and we have of course a way to celebrate with a glass of rum. That's when I arrived on the boat.
You?
On the right, yes.
Shirtless? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I lost some pounds since, right? Okay.
Yeah, you have a little taste of that.
All right. There are two actually marina in Colon. Colon is about 40 kilometers, 30 miles from Panama. And there is a pretty big marina, but not very well protected on the south side of the Panama Canal. So when you're coming from here on the left, okay? They decided to go on the north side, which is actually way more protected, a little bit more caned. It's an old base, American base, and there was actually a fantastic sail loft. We had to kick butt to actually get the sail on time because it had been ripped during the Puerto Rico to Panama crossing. But he did finally perform what he was asked to do, and he asked $1,500 more than what he actually had quoted. But that's, you know, there is a sale. There is in Costa Rica they say "pura vida," and there they say "juega vida," which means I'm going to try to get you. Okay. And of course, there are plenty of old ruins. That's the battery where the Americans were protecting the canal, and a church with a very interesting mix of different styles: South American, African, Gothic. It's very weird. We really see that there has been a lot of different culture, and this is really in bad shape. There were termites all over the place and so on, but it was interesting. So we had to follow. We had of course a paper shop, right? Some slots there, and the last slots are here. Some of the slots are very, very close to each other. You get in, you go up, you go 300 yards, you will go up again. It's very strange. All right. So we are doing 3.7 knots. Normally we were cruising at about 6.5 knots with the two engines. We were told to go on the starboard, no, on the north. Yeah.
Yes.
On the North Canal, correct. Very weird. And there were actually some, this was on the GPS, but on land, didn't take a picture. Actually, you have enormous big arrow showing where to go. These are not big, and these arrows change colors and change direction and so on. These are arrows. I never saw that in my navigation courses. Very strange. All right, we are going into a slot. How does that happen? We had rented some very heavy polypropylene lines, so that if it goes overboard, at least it floats and it doesn't get caught in the propeller. And we get a monkey wrist. The guys on the shore throw the monkey wrist. We just put our arm horizontally, and the line comes right on our wrist. It's so precise, it's wonderful. The monkey wrist line is made out of scissors. Why? First, if you actually dip it in water, it becomes heavier and it's easier to throw away.
Okay.
And it's easy to cut. Okay, with a propeller or whatever, just cut it off. And I was applauding the guys, well, una más, yes. The guy tried, and his monkey wrist landed 20 meters across ahead of the boat. He was so confused, like I was before with a computer. All right, that's inside of one of the slots, and it's very interesting to see how far actually we go up and down. Easily 30, 35 feet. We go in the next one again. It's scary in a sense.
What's the temperature? How hot was it?
It was not too hot, but I'm comfortable in very hot temperature. What was very weird was the squalls. Squalls can arrive like that. You see them arrive, and then boom, for 10 minutes. The interesting thing, The squall is not cold. I spent some time in Africa, and when the squall arrives, it's cold. No, they're absolutely not.
Carolyn, how do you know all this?
We were in Panama.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh.
then we took a boat
Come on,
from Gatun
take
Lake
over.
down. It takes 8 minutes to rise up in one of the lots or fall in one of the lots.
Okay.
Take over.
No,
I know, I just wondered,
I don't
she's
know
been
your
nodding
side.
her head all along, so I was wondering how she knew all
I've
this.
been.
So that was our very first slot behind the British cadet, where he's a bit bigger than a cadet, I tell you that. We were alongside a brand new sport fishing boat, brand new. There must have been 10 made on board because they didn't want to make a scratch. It had to be delivered to Cabo San Lucas. Okay, and we were lucky. We actually just attached, rafted alongside him, and they had to actually attend their line to actually be sure that they raced with the flow. You see that we were still very careful with our mask. The Panamanians were very masked, very disciplined people. Okay, maybe it was one of the rules on the Panamanian Canal region because it's a bit paramilitary, I have to say. Yes. She is actually a lieutenant in the US Navy, and she lives in Panama now, in the Bahamas with her family, and she actually just flew to help the wife of the owner. Wonderful people, wonderful people. Atlantic News is going a little faster than we are. Some of the turns in the canal are pretty sharp, so they can actually the large ship put their propeller on, but it's difficult to actually maneuver. Instead of being pulled by tugboats, they actually pull from the back, and they actually help the rudder because there is not enough speed for this boat to actually turn smooth. You need a good flow of water on the rudder, otherwise the rudder doesn't work. Okay, you can be on a plane, right, Commander? And you can try your flaps, you're not moving, right? Absolutely. Exactly, you need some airflow. But there is something else which is helping. In the past, when Teddy Roosevelt was actually inaugurating the canal, there were some mules. So actually these animals were pulling the sailboats. Well, now we use heavy locomotives. They're heavy. They're heavy. And you know how they're called? Mules. You get a 10 on 10.
Betting 1,000.
That was the last, no, the 4 last slots. The very last 2 slots are against each other. That's very funny. Actually, the door, there is an inside door inside a long slot. So actually, you don't get out of the slot, you just move a little bit, they close the middle door, and it equalizes the level with the ocean. It's very interesting. As you noticed, we were alone. So sometimes you actually were rafted alongside another boat, sometimes you're alone. It's a lot more difficult to be alone. You're in the middle of the slot, and you have major flow of water on both sides. Actually, I always thought that the water would come through little holes in the door, like in Holland. No, the water comes through big pumps and valves that they have in the side of the canal. Because if they were using the water from the Gatun Lake, there wouldn't be any water in the Gatun Lake. So they try to actually recycle the same water all day long. It's a very complex machinery. We are very, very small. Very small.
Is that the Suez Canal?
Yeah,
Yes.
we planted many trees during our voyage. This was the most difficult gorge to cut. I spoke about the squalls. Well, you never knew exactly when the squall would actually come, if it was raining, lot of rain or not. And the workers had just dug some of this rock. And what happened? They go the next day. Major mudslide. You had a lot of machinery that was destroyed, that was lost, lots of injuries, lots of explosions, and a lot of dead people, and a lot of victims through explosions. It was really bad. The other thing also that the French didn't think about was that actually it's very good to dig all that. What do you do with the sludge? Well, we go a little bit further. We just dump it. Okay, and then the next day we dump it. Well, the problem is that this sludge is totally, it's like liquid. So when you actually come with a vehicle to dump more sludge, everything is actually filling the gorge again. It was a total mess. Actually, I put the references in the presentation, and this will be available. I found one book which was fantastic. It's this one, yes. Okay? Pass Between the Sea. It's boring like hell, but it's fantastic. Well, it's more, I think it's 37 hours of listening on Audible, okay? And I was always falling asleep, and I had to listen to it 3 or 4 times. Way better. 2 children books. I tell you, they're wonderful. They explain everything. The only funny thing is that they don't really speak about the real history. It's very Americanized. They don't say exactly what happened, the fight between the Brits and the French and the Dutch and the bankrupts of the French and the little maneuvers that Ted Roosevelt has done, which was not too kosher. But hey, we had a wonderful Panama Canal since. This is the South Bridge. There is a new North Bridge. This one is pretty much used. The North Bridge, which actually enables us to go from Colón to Panama, is empty. We saw 3 or 4 vehicles on the bridge every time we pass the bridge. It's totally crazy. There is a lot of things changing in Panama. For instance, with the price of the Panama Canal passage, sometimes it's a lot cheaper to discharge a container in Colón and to truck it to Panama and recharge it on Panama. Well, it's possible because some of the containers have to be transported from one ship line to another anyway. So actually, what is difficult is sort of to pull it out with the crane, with the gantry, and put it on board of another ship. If there is a road transportation in between, it doesn't matter too much. I really wanted a good picture of the boat. So I took my phone and I was about to jump. Ooh, Lord, we don't do that. I can tell you. The Panamanian police was there, and everybody said, no, don't do that, you cannot do that. Said, why not? Anyway, I finally could give my phone to one of the employees, and he was kind enough to take a picture of the boat with us. And the pilot is very busy. Manana. Okay, and this was the line handler. The line handler actually is in the Maritime College, and he actually adds or he accumulates sea time by passing the canal. The pilot is actually a weekend pilot because during the week he is one of the pilot boat drivers. Okay, like a launch operator. These guys know what they do. And look how taut the lines are. Better not to leave a finger between the cleat and the line, because you would color the line pretty badly. Right. And hey, there we are. There is a webcam. Who took the picture? People in New York. Because there was a webcam and they took plenty of pictures. Actually, I could include it in the presentation.
Yeah.
We are very small.
They're very
And where in the canal is that?
That's the very last canal. We are not in the slots yet. The slot was a little bit further. Actually, with this boat, we had a problem. We are actually in the same slot as this boat, and it was the last voyage of the captain. I tried to find the slide of the movie, and for a good 3 to 5 minutes, I'm not exaggerating, we were in this ravine with this big boat blasting their horn for 3 minutes straight. It was absolutely terrible. It was, and I tried to actually find, I have it somewhere on the computer, and it must be at the club with a bad internet somewhere. Finally, they were so excited. This was their first sight of the Pacific Ocean, and she was almost crying. You know, three years of hope and of work and COVID in Bahamas and so on. I can tell you many stories later on if you want about their life in the Bahamas. It's quite interesting with COVID. I was a little bit disgusted by this picture, and this is a very powerful fishing boat. Actually, the fishing boat is beautiful itself, but they have a helicopter, and they actually locate the bank of fishes, and then this very large hearse goes around the bank, or we call a fish school, okay, and takes everything. Everything. So it's a pretty large boat with an enormous capacity of fishing too much. That's really. But so it is. So we are in the Pacific, and as much as the Atlantic coast is very sandy, obviously this one is not. Okay. That was just outside of the Panama Canal. On the left, there is a nice place where we can actually anchor. And we were immediately welcomed by nice little. This is nothing compared to what they just saw last week in the Pacific. They saw schools of hundreds of them. These are islands west of Panama. Very volcanic, very special. I never saw that. Big holes in the rocks. It's called Las Perlas, the archipelago de Las Perlas, and it's really nice, really nice. The water is cold. There is the Humboldt current, which actually goes there and divided in two. One goes up towards Cabo San Lucas. The other one goes towards the Galapagos, and it is cold. So I went swimming.
Oh.
That's it. Okay. The locals love to go there on the weekends, and every boat has an enormous set of loudspeakers playing a different music. That's okay. They're all. It's all the same.
Yeah.
But it's lovely. At 6:30, they left, and it was wonderful. And finally, the young guy on board could take his Bahamian shell, and it's very emotive. So he's a wonderful guy. He's all right. And of course, life on board continues. She actually is a hairdresser, a hairstylist, but she tries not to do that to make some money while in the island. She thinks that actually the islander themselves have to actually keep a certain way of making money. I had a friend which was actually circling the globe like that, and he was a dentist. Well, when he arrived actually in the Marquise and so on, there were no dentists, so he was not taking the job of anybody else. But she considered that actually it was worse not to do it. Which one is it? Kolohe. Kolohe means rascal in the islands. And all these are anchors waiting to pass the canal. It's very impressive. I have a slide. I think it's later on. Yep. Look at that. So that's a AIS echo. And it's only Panama. Then you have a little bit further here, a little bit further there. When we passed here, I counted 97 ships waiting to pass. And that's 97 waiting to pass. Then you have the one which have just passed. And they pass. This one is passing. This one, I think it's a small sailboat. This must be a military boat. But it's very impressive. It's scary. Ah, sorry. Well, I like the place. I went twice. So when you come back from the islands towards Panama, you notice how interesting a place it is. It is very nice. You have wonderful parks. You have a wonderful series of birds. The flora is wonderful. And then you have this city, which has absolutely exploded. Then an enormous, or not an enormous, a pretty large marsh, where very poor people are living. And then you have the airport area. There is something very funny in Panama. Many streets have the same name. So when you go to, you take an Uber, you give it, they say, yes, here you are. That's not one. So you get back in the Uber, here you are. No. So finally, I had to go and pick up something, and somebody told me it's in front of the synagogue. Great, there is only one synagogue. It's changing. A lot of people from a lot of Jewish people want to go back to Israel, and they are in Israel right now, and they are very scared. Some from Argentina would like also to get out, and Venezuela is like, when Panama becomes one of the very attractive places for Jewish people to go back, because it is safe, and there are lots of monetary incentive to actually create a strong Jewish community in Panama. And on that this afternoon.
Robert, can you talk about how they made the appointment to go through the canal?
Yes, you actually have to contact basically a broker, and the broker arranges everything for you. And through the broker, you get, of course, proof of insurance. You can reserve the pilot. You can rent the lines. You can rent the line handler, which is different from the pilot, and a very strict schedule. You have to leave. You have half an hour to pass the first slot. Otherwise, you're back at anchor for 5, 6, 7 days. But they really wanted to leave Panama before the 5th of March, because the 7th or the 8th supposedly is the start of the raining season, where a lot of things happened. I can explain. The kid got an ear infection, and so finally they left around the trash. But I had committed myself to leave them on the 4th in the evening, so that gave them the 5th to actually prepare, 6 in the morning to leave. So basically, I could have been bored like hell in Panama City. Well, maybe. Well, I decided to actually go on the other side. I came by boat from Colón to Panama. Well, then I went from Panama back on the Atlantic coast. And I decided to spend some time in the San Blas Island. Totally different. It's actually a group of sand islands. Yeah, it's very, very low on the ocean surface. They're really, really in danger of extinction because of the climate change. But the other thing which is important to know about these indigenous people is that it's a strong matriarchy. Matriarchy. The women are the chief.
Matriarchy.
Matriarchy. And they live out of the tourism, and they're very, very independent. Actually, it's very funny when you go there. You have to show a passport. Oh yeah, it's a visa. You have to, no, you don't need a visa, but they really pay attention to who you are. Some, I guess, cannot really read. It is so low on the ocean level that we were taken at an interesting place called the Pool. It's an old island that had been completely overflown by a hurricane. So actually they cannot live, there's nothing, but of course the tourists love to go in the pool because they're in the middle of nowhere. You're standing and it's very warm. I would say it's one of the warmest water I ever went to. It was very enjoyable. So all the tourists stay in the pool like that. I said, nah, I want to see what's going on. So I swam actually at the edge where it starts to dip. And there I found new coral. Very, very new, clean, alive coral. I was so happy. Red like blood. Nobody was looking at that. So I stayed on one of the islands. I stayed overnight there. It was absolutely lovely. Once that the tourists are gone, it's a very attractive place for the tourists to spend a weekend. But I have to say that at 3 o'clock, there is nobody left. Oh, we don't see anything. It's the dictionary, English, Guna, and Spanish. Total different language. It has no root that we would actually associate to any other language. It's very funny. So I rented a tent. Huh? Why not?
5 stars.
5 stars, why not? Well, wait a minute. It had rained for 3 or 4, 5 days in a row. These little critters, these little crabs would actually come. I said, okay. So I asked one of the guys, is it possible maybe to have a place in the room there? So I go and see the rooms, and it was impossible. It was hot like an oven. Why? Because the roof is made out of corrugated metal, which is painted in dark red. No way, Jose. Okay. However, there were 3 bungalows or 4 bungalows a little bit further. I say, and this, can I go? Oh, I have to ask the mama. No, I have to ask the chefe. And chefe. I say, so you're gonna ask the chef. So he goes to one guy who looked a little bit more literate than the others. And he said, I have to ask the mama. So they find a way to ask the mama, who comes with her very distinctive attire, with special stocking which are made of pearls and so on. It's absolutely fantastic. And she said, yes. All this thing I could only get because I was a little bit thirsty. So I started to have dinner and I asked for beer. And I see these guys looking at me and say, 5 more beers. Then after that, you have some rum? 5 rums. Fantastic. I tell you, suddenly they speak Spanish. So I could finally got a little place.
Very nice.
Look at that.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice and very interesting. First, there is a big space you see up there between the walls and the roof. That's a wonderful air circulation. And there are shutters on some holes in the wall. And these shutters are actually sliding horizontally. It's very ingenious. And there are a couple of beds. Well, I was alone in the whole thing, so that was wonderful. A little bit cold, I have to say.
How did you deal with the mosquitoes?
Not one mosquito, no insects at all, zero. Zero is nothing. And even in the shower, no insects. Shower was very clean, very, island way. Okay, broken ceramic and things like that, but impeccably clean. So no problem. I always have plastic sandals when I go in public shower, but it was fantastic. I really enjoyed the stay. I would have stayed a lot longer there. So I joined Shayna and EJ, who welcomed me wonderfully. It was so wonderful to see them again. Very dear friends. And that's the view from the apartment. And yes, that's the view from the kitchen. It's nice. The apartment is maybe 3 times the club here.
How old are the kids now?
Excuse me?
How old are the children now?
Okay, Gigi is, I think, 18 or 20. She's still in Menton. I think it's Menton, where she actually spent some time studying political science at the division of the Sorbonne. So she's doing very well. She's going to to Columbia next in September. And the son is doing fantastic also. He's an avid basketball player. And he's going to an engineering school, I think on the West Coast, in San Francisco. So actually, they already asked me, do you want to actually be the skipper to bring our boat back to San Francisco from Panama? I said, you know,
I can see EJ playing basketball because Shayna and EJ, their son, are very tall.
Yeah, compared to you, yes. you have 2 things which I know: it's your smile and your heart. Yes.
She looks the same. She hasn't aged.
The boat is still for sale.
Wow.
Wow.
She hasn't aged at all.
No, she looks the same. Cool.
I spoke about the phone.
I love you guys. That's
One
very
of the,
nice. Thank you.
To walk in, to hide.
She's saying on the computer, she's saying.
Hello, Shayna. Oh, I guess I cannot say anything bad about you, huh?
So far, so good. The only big news is my son decided on Berkeley last night, so he's going to go to Berkeley.
Hello, wonderful. That's even better. Congratulations for you to actually arrange all that and educate the way you did. That's
Well,
really
so
cool.
yeah, but the point is we're going to have one in New York, so we will be at North Shore, and then one in California, and we'll be going back and forth a lot. No definite plans, though.
Okay, so do I have already to give you my bed, or can I stay in it?
I have a guest room.
She suddenly shut up. No, it was very, very funny. We hadn't seen each other for 12 years. And then suddenly he said, come to New York the day after I land back from Panama. Because I had to go and visit colleges with their son. So it was a wonderful time. And during COVID, of course, the kids were very secluded and they couldn't do anything. But it looks like some activities continued normally. And we were actually climbing one of the small hills around Panama. And suddenly there is, 120 kids doing all sorts of cartoon moves. It was the first time that they could actually show what they had learned to their parents. It didn't happen inside, but it happened in the park. And it was absolutely charming to see these kids being proud to show the new endeavor to the. These are two Kuna ladies on the main plaza. They must be paid, I guess, by the Ministry of Culture or something like that. And I spoke to you about, I mentioned the decoration of their clothes. And they have another specialty, which is called the mola. And they do a lot of embroidery, like this one that they sell to tourists. And this embroidery is being used to actually apply to existing dresses. So it's kind of for great. I received that from another friend 2 days ago, but I didn't want to buy more stuff. And they were actually dancing in the old town for hours. It's pretty repetitive, but it's charming. And we love nature, of course. I spoke about the mola. Okay. It means bird plumage is a Kuna Indian word for clothing. Some are very elaborate. Very elaborate. They all tell a story. Everybody heard about the Panamanian hat? I didn't buy any because this kind of wonderful tourist stuff is great when you are in the touristic country. And then you bring back to New York and you look a little bit weird. But they're pretty artistic. They are now painting on these hats, which maybe are made in China. But they definitely are not poor people. They really make money. They have all sorts of craft. That's really funny. Toys made out of beer cans. And of course, I had to come back one day to Roslyn. It was cold when I came back. It was cold. So, and that's it, guys. That's it.
Rub it in.
Almost done. A lot of motoring. A lot of motoring. We did a little bit of sailing going to Las Perlas, but barely. There was not a lot of wind. And now, however, when they left Panama going to the Marquis, is when they arrived last week, it was bad. They had a good 15, 18, 20, 30 knots of that. Okay. The boat reached 18 knots, and they suddenly got scared and said, "Oh, what are we doing?" And they had learned from another boat, which is actually what we call cruisy, bungee cruising with them. So actually, when you are with another boat, you go like that. Sometimes you go faster than the other boat. You stop in an island and you find each other again 2 days later. And exactly the same boat. And they had this other boat actually had 3 kids on board instead of 2. The guy is from New Zealand. His wife is from Holland. It's very funny. 3 kids are wonderful. They're homeschooled, of course. They're doing that for 5.5 years. They're going to end up the trip in 6 months. So actually, they decided to cruise together. And it's exactly a sister ship of Colorado. It was very interesting. And they really learned from each other because it's always nice to have a sister ship. And they learned, for instance, that in order to slow a boat, the best way is to attach a couple of milk crates behind the boat. Because now a brake is actually due to vortex that's created by the surface multiplied by the square of the speed. And so if you put a bucket, you don't have a lot of surface. If you put actually a net, or if you put a milk crate, you have a lot of surface.
Use the big milk crate or the smaller?
Depends. You have two small or one big. So that